Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is our Arsenal transfer show. I'm in different surroundings today. Currently, as you watch this, I'll be on a flight to Spain to cover Arsenal's game against Girona in the Champions League. Very much looking forward to that. But as usual, I don't want to leave you in the lurch without a show at 8 a.m. So I've pre-recorded this episode for you. So let's jump into things with a very special guest. Very happy this morning to be joined by EAFC, FIFA, or whatever you want to call it these days, whatever they're naming it, YouTube and content creator Nepenthez. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yes, good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having a chat, and been watching the show for a long time now. You're my morning routine since my kids have started going to different schools. I'll be getting up a lot earlier instead of going to bed a lot later, and you're always there, when I get home from the school run. So
put in the work. Yeah, indeed. It's a commitment. Some days are easier than others. Especially after a win, it's easier. But some of the defeats this season have been much harsher. Let me just start, Nep, actually, because obviously I noticed the reason why I got you on the show. I noticed that recently I feel like you've been tweeting a lot more about Arsenal. Has this been kind of a recent kind of gripped into the football club that you've supported, obviously, for a very long time?
Not really. I've always tweeted about them a lot, but I never really got into like the nuance of like the debate with people. I would just tweet my opinion and then that was it. And a lot more recently, I don't know if you know what So Rare is. It's like a fantasy football platform, and you can actually like buy and own NFTs of Arsenal cards, and then you play them in fantasy football. And so for the last 3 years that Arsenal have been on that platform and I've been playing that game, like I need to know everything because I need to know who's starting, like, where we're at, like, it's like important for fantasy. And so I was just kind of like, I was already in that world and I kind of just almost like fell over the edge a little bit more into an area where I didn't know existed, actually, like yourself. And there's a lot of other Arsenal content creators that I just really like now. And so because they're now constantly popping up on my feed, I'm like seeing more, so I'm engaging more. And so because I'm engaging more, I guess you're seeing it back as well. Like my followers are seeing it as well. So
of course. Yeah, how do you find it? Because it can be a dangerous world, jumping into old football debates online.
Yeah, oh mate, it's like, you know what it's like. All I have to tell myself is this is probably a 12-year-old that's just trying to wind me up.
Yeah,
and move on with my day, because you can't see who it is, can you? Like, I know, I presume everyone's like an adult whilst I'm typing, and then when it gets heated, I'm like, no, this is just a kid that's trying to get me. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's a mess, isn't it? Sometimes
it really is. It really is a mess, and I almost get the sense that it's very easy to kind of fall into the trap of your pride almost feeling like it's being hit, like, because you're having a debate back and forth. No one likes being wrong, and time and time again it will come around where someone actually presents a decent argument and like, I'm gonna have to hold my hands up here and say, I got this one wrong. But it's one of those. But Twitter and X as it is now is kind of molded into this space where people can pretty much say whatever they like, for better or for worse, of course. And in a way, it's good, but from an Arsenal perspective, with how good things have been recently, I still find it staggering how much kind of negativity there surrounds the club. And one of the things I noticed from kind of your side and some of the tweets and some of the kind of the trends I was seeing was, I think, an agreement in where I'm at is that you're equally as surprised at how much perhaps criticism and scrutiny surrounds a club that are back amongst the title chasers this season and the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, like compared to where we were 5-6 years ago, and for like 10 years before, since the Emirates, really, we're in such a healthy spot. Like there was a period of time, I know you'll remember it, Tom, and the viewers will as well, like 4 or 5 years ago, where every time we would kick off to play a game of football, I would just be like on edge, because I'm like we're going to lose or we're not going to win. I was scared to watch us because we weren't playing good. The team looked like they didn't want to be there. Nobody knew what they was doing. And if we did get a win, it wasn't great. And there actually, that's not true. There were a few really good performances, actually. One against Spurs, where I think we won 3-0 or 3-1. And we played some beautiful football that day. Aubameyang and Lacazette linking up with like fast counters. And it was nice here and there. Arteta's got us playing, maybe not this season because people keep playing a low block against us, but Arteta's got us playing beautiful football again. And I now go into games confident that we're going to win and excited to watch us play. And I don't know how people could be upset about that.
It is that classic line, what you said there, of I don't ever go into it. Or there have been some this season, but it's more to do with things out of our control, like injuries and chaotic referee decisions. I'll go into a game thinking, I'm really not sure we're going to win this. But over the last 2.5 seasons, I've been blessed with this utter arrogance that I think we're going to go and win every single game that we play. And the amount of times we've gone to Big Six teams away from home in the last decade plus, and we've not had a hope in hell. Our record away against Big Six teams used to be utterly awful. And I think the record that Arteta has instilled, it's hundreds of days since we're losing against Big Six teams. I think I put a stat the other day on the show. It was like since we've lost to Chelsea, I think Chelsea's might even be in the thousands of days since we last lost to them in the league. And of course, it'll be an interesting game when we play them in the second half of this season with everything that's on the line. And speaking of which, yesterday, of course, was, or rather Saturday, I keep saying yesterday, Saturday's game against Wolves. I think most of us went into that game with an expectation, even with the players we got missing, that we would probably win it. But it felt as though after the incident that happened in the first half, that sense evaporated very quickly as we went down to 10 men. We've had a couple of days now to digest a lot of what's happened. We're still unaware of whether Arsenal are even going to appeal. I've sent in a couple of texts to find out to see if we're going to appeal, and so far nothing concrete yet. I'd be shocked if we don't. But what was your view of the decision that was made by Michael Oliver to send off Miles Lewis-Skelly, but also subsequently to that kind of discourse surrounding that decision as well?
Yeah, I mean, like, first of all, like, as yourself in the social media eye, for me, I've got like quite a large following. No one deserves the abuse he's getting, the personal attacks and stuff. Like, it's really hard. He's just a human being, and if he makes a mistake on the field, that's one thing, but he didn't then make the next mistake. VAR did. If you believe it wasn't a red card, that's not his further mistake. He at the moment he decided to give a red. That's fair enough. I don't think it was a red card. I don't think nearly anyone thinks it's a red card. However, I've seen a few stills of the studs like proper raking on the shin, and so all of a sudden it's like when you watch it at full speed several times, I'm like, it's never a red. He just trips him up. But when you see that, it's like, maybe.
Slow down.
Yeah,
and that camera angle, actually, from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like, because I know exactly what you mean. The studs are up and they look like they're hitting the back of the player's legs, but actually, when the contact happens, it's actually
the side of his foot.
Yes, it's the foot. But
that's why I wonder if VAR got it wrong, because they've got that image there and they're like, oh yeah, look at that, he scraped his leg with his studs, and he actually hasn't. So I can see why VAR got it wrong as well. Is what I was like getting at. Like I can see where they came from, even though I also agree like it just wasn't a red.
I'm just picturing the chat box right now going, what? But the issue I think is that they checked it so quickly. That it was such a quick decision. I remember, was it the Saliba penalty against Brighton? They seemed to check like that. Like it was so fast. And all you want is to see, offsides. I get they can take some time. Red cards, they should take some time because it's a big game-changing decision. And it's just that sense that these decisions are being made so fast, isn't it, at the moment? Yeah,
they are being made fast. And the Saliba one, I heard the commentators be like, oh, it's going to VAR. And then the other commentators like, oh, it's checks cleared. I'm like, wait, they haven't even finished talking about the incident as commentators, and VAR's apparently already cleared the penalty. It's like, come on, man! Like you've got to have a look at it. Like have some common sense. And like I've been getting a lot of heat on it is a red card from people about Lewis-Skelly, and as I say, I think when you do look at that one still angle, it looks like a red card there. But when you see it from the other angle, and the fact that his foot's it's like the side of his foot that's there, and it's like almost like an optical illusion that his foot's actually scraped him. I don't know how that VAR didn't take just 1 minute to be like, give us 30 seconds to look at every angle of this. Oh no, actually, here's what's happened. Go to the monitor and look, rather than, oh yeah, you're right, send him off. Like, and then for me, like the biggest thing wasn't even the fact that he got the red card incorrectly. It's the fact that Gomez didn't get a straight red for almost breaking Timber's ankle. Like, a genuine horrific tackle for a second yellow. Like for us, it doesn't matter because we won't play Wolves in that 1 or 3 game ban section. But for the teams in the relegation zone, they must be furious that he hasn't got a 3-match ban. Like,
and we've seen it before. I remember there was a famous example of a player that was like had been sent off for a second yellow, gone down the tunnel. He was called back out to the field for the referee to say no yellow card, and he's thinking, "Oh, great, it's been rescinded to be given a straight red card and go back down the tunnel." But it's important. You're right. For those teams that are going to be playing Wolves, Wolves should be punished, or the players should be punished, of course, and subsequently Wolves by missing him for 3 games. But that's not happened. And because it's in the same game, you got that comparison so close to one another. What do you think about kind of the PGMOL, the referees, Michael Oliver? There is anything, either an unconscious bias or a conscious bias. Some people go as far as alleging corruption, which, always important to put that A word in front of that word, corruption. But what do you make of that side of the debate?
No, I think when you get in a social media echo chamber, you feel like things are going against you. And it's the same with like referees and decisions. I bet if you picked any fan from any club that watches every game, they would speak on also a significant number of ridiculous decisions that haven't gone their way.
Sure.
I just think when it comes to Arsenal, the decisions get blown up on social media a lot more for some reason or another. And so I don't think there's anything. Maybe there's an unconscious bias towards us, but I don't think there's a conscious bias towards us, because I have seen several other like horrific decisions that have gone like a different way. For a different club that nothing to do with Arsenal. So
it's a very grounded way of looking at it. I see what you're coming from as well. It's like psychologically, always a fan is going to look at their club and think that there's something, there. I think that there's just been so many examples from an Arsenal point of view that I empathise why people think that there is. And to be honest, I remember I was in the press conference at Newcastle when Mikel Arteta used the disgrazia, as was argued in post by the legal side of things. I think we all know what was going down. But I do think that moment, I think that there was something of a shift, if you like. And I think that moment will have had an impact on how Arsenal and Arteta in particular are kind of viewed. I can just picture it. I said it on this morning's or yesterday morning show. I could just picture in the PGMOL offices in between games when they're going through their training and they're going through their briefings. Arsenal must be the butt of the joke in there so many times when it comes to who's going to get Arsenal this week? Who's going to, you can just sense that that's the feeling, but you don't want there to be anything sordid going on. You don't want there to be anything, slightly off key, because we want to believe that this sport is fair and just, and it's all about what's going on the pitch. But so many times it seems that the wrong decision so consistently is taken, and it seems that so consistently happens against Arsenal. But I've always said that Arsenal do their absolute utmost to take the referee out of the game and win games on their own merit, and they are finding that very hard this season because of a lot of things that are out of their control. Again, some things within their control, and that big thing has been injuries, and that leads us to, desperation for Arsenal to do some business this window, and that's where we go with the conversation next, Net, because transfers are what all Arsenal fans are calling for right now. We've got, less than a week now remaining in the January transfer window. How are you feeling about Arsenal and their potential business this winter?
It's been awful, hasn't it? It's been awful. If ever, I could have appreciated not signing someone and waiting until the summer, especially in the offensive area, if Saka and now Jesus didn't get long-term injuries. I could have been we have got enough. We just need to get these players that we've got firing, and then we'll be fine. But with those two huge injuries, and Ødegaard kind of out of form a little bit since he's come back from injury, he's found some games where he's been good, but he's generally been out of form. I just can't believe we haven't signed someone yet. And if we do sign someone now, it's just going to be Sterling V2, isn't it? It's going to be somebody that's there because it's like desperation purchase or desperation buy. But if we spent 20 extra million on a player now instead of getting him in the summer for 20 million less, but it was a difference between winning the title and not, spend the extra 20 million. Get them now. I'm a bit blown away, a lot blown away actually by the fact that we haven't signed anyone.
Yeah, Arsenal clearly want to get the right player. But they have this huge high bar when it comes to players, which I know fans will turn around and, well, they signed Sterling. So surely the bar can't be that high. But of course, that happened on deadline day when they were desperate to bring somebody in. But we're getting close to that same scenario right now. And it's a case of this season is still very much on for us. The title race looks a big challenge because it is. The League Cup looks tough because you've lost the first leg 2-0, but I've just watched Bournemouth go to Newcastle and win 3-1. You repeat that scoreline and suddenly it's a penalty shootout, the absolute minimum. and it is possible to beat this Newcastle team. And of course, the Champions League offers a really good opportunity for Arsenal as well. And you feel as though with Jesus out, gone for the rest of this season at the very minimum and into next season, Saka return dates is March at the very earliest from the sounds of things. And of course, there are other players like Ben White hopefully coming back soon, and others hopefully as well that will be available shortly. But that forward line without Saka, without Jesus, and this Havertz collapsed at the end of that game against Wolves. Just completely spent. If there was, we'll save names for a second. The two areas, of course, are kind of wide left and then centre forward. Which do you look at as your, particularly in the context of this winter window and our own needs? Where do you see as your priority?
Yeah, centre forward for sure. I think wide left, I mean, Trossard's in a bit of form again now anyway. Yeah. And I really, really like Martinelli, but he's such a confidence player and he's just low on confidence right now. But even against Wolves, on the right-hand side, he put in some banging crosses for Havertz with his left foot, like cutting inside. I thought he was brilliant. But when you see that game, I think Kai Havertz missed 4 like banker headers from about 8 to 10 yards out. And it's like, fair enough, he's getting there, he's getting the shot on and he's not scoring. And on another day, he probably walks away with a hat-trick.
Yeah.
But if you've got an absolute clinical beast in there, we've demolish Wolves. The red card doesn't ever happen. It doesn't become part of the whole narrative, and we walk away with a 4 or 5-0 win. I'm adamant that if we have like a quality striker, like a top quality striker, I'm adamant we'd be in significantly better situation in the league right now. I also think we would have beat Man United in the FA Cup, and I also think we probably would have beat Newcastle in a Carabao Cup because we missed some quite like easy chances there as well. Or we just not even missing easy chances, just missing that threat. And do you know Benjamin Sesko scored like a wonder goal last week, right?
Yeah,
and he just rifled it. And when you saw Marmoush for City on the Sunday, he could have passed to put Foden in one of the plays that he had, but instead he took a shot from 30 yards. When you start doing things like that with your strikers and your midfielders as well, what it does is people won't play a low block against us anymore because they think, oh crap, they're gonna shoot here from 30 yards out, and they've got a banger of a striker that can pop it in the back of the net. If we had that, just somebody that can take that pop shot, all of a sudden the low block gives more creativity options for the wingers and the wide men. So all of a sudden Martinelli starts getting a bit more space, and it just opens up the game a bit, I think, anyway. So I don't even think we necessarily need a striker to be there to score goals, but to just have a shot, because nobody else shoots from outside the box. And that might be an Arteta thing, drilling it into them, like not to do it. But if you've got somebody as young as Sesko, it probably is, yeah. But if you've got somebody as young as Sesko that's just like, I'm shooting no matter what, I don't care what he says, I can score this goal. I just think it makes a big difference for the way we play.
Yeah, the chaos factor that we're lacking. I think it's been spoken about before in games. We've seen like De Bruyne pop up from 30 yards and find a match-winning goal.
Yeah,
Liverpool have had it with Mohamed Salah. We don't really have that kind of X factor player especially when Saka's not. I think Saka can be that. I think Ødegaard needs to be more of that when he's available. He's not had a very good season for a number of reasons, both in and out of his control. But we do lack that killer. I just don't know if that's available. I know you mentioned Sesko, and I think that Sesko is a player that they've obviously liked, and I know that the interest has persisted into January. But Leipzig aren't going to let him go for a fee that isn't well above his usual market value. He had a £55 million release clause that was taken out after he signed a new deal. There's suggestions that 70 million is what it would take to get it done. Is he worth that for you?
I mean, if you look at Højlund's transfer fee and Anthony's transfer fee and Nicolas Pepe's transfer fee, I think he's worth 70 million.
Yeah, and I think that if you've liked him before, and we know that we have, then you're kind of looking at that and thinking, well, he's got to get it done. So I guess the next question goes on from that is that Mikel Arteta has been very vocal in those pressers, where we've been sitting there and asking him questions about, do we need to get a striker? Do you need to go replace Jesus? Do you need to go sign this player? And every single time, even though you could tell in his face, he's getting more agitated by the frequency of these questions and the repetition of these questions. He's being more vocal, I think, than I can ever remember him when asked about transfers. And there's a clear desire on his side to sign one. He's still getting some heat from the fan base, and I think some fingers are still being pointed at him. But do you feel like the fingers need to be pointed elsewhere if Arsenal don't sign one?
Yeah, I think if you asked Arteta today to put his finger on a striker that he could have in the club tomorrow, his hand would be, touching 5 faces. Like there's people that he would want immediately. I think it's, Arteta's definitely like a for the club man. and you know, he's protected this club a lot with like how he's answered certain questions and the way, you know, the things he's been asked and stuff. He's done a great job of protecting the players, like protecting the club. Like I like him a lot, but there has to become a point in time, especially when he is getting the heat that he's getting now, where he kind of says, "Look, I want someone." Like, but it's out of my hands. And he tries to say that in a roundabout way, doesn't he? Where he says, "Oh, there's 3 parties involved. Like, you know, it's not just our decision." That for me, that's him saying, "I want him, but like, I'm not the only person that can do anything." So, yeah, I think he's in like between a rock and a hard place, really, of like trying to make sure the board stay sweet and actually get him who he wants, and trying to keep the fans on board as well with it. And you know, as you always see on like X and stuff, like things get taken out of context, or just clips of him get replayed, and before you know it, people think that he's the guy that like signs the contracts, like scouts the games, like, you know, he's like the true football manager sitting there on his computer, like watching like post games of these strikers to try and make sure that he gets them. But he's not that person. Like, there's a lot of people above him that also have an influence in whether or not he can now or at all sign the strikers that he wants. So yeah, I think he gets a little bit like unjustly criticized.
Yeah, and I often point to the fact that he's wanted players in the past. We know he wanted Rafinha, for example, before he went to Barcelona. We know that even though he's not been a success whatsoever at Chelsea, Mihajlo Mudryk was a player that he also wanted us to sign. Lisandro Martinez, another one that he was keen on. You know, there's been players that we haven't got that he has wanted. And in the case of Rafinha, they didn't then bring in they didn't pivot to anyone else with Mudryk. They pivoted to Trossard. I think Vlahovic, of course, we remember him in the past, was linked. They pivoted to a degree to Jesus. Lisandro Martinez, they pivoted to Zinchenko. So they do pivot, but when it's a player that they see kind of at a certain profile, in the case of Rafinha, and they just don't deem there to be a better option as an alternative, they just opt instead seemingly to be patient, wait to the next window, wait until a player is available, rather than going for kind of a stopgap player. Because I think that while people rightfully get agitated that we don't spend in key moments where we need to, the club recognise that it's not just about the investment, but from Arteta's side, it's about who you're filling a spot with, and it's those spots that get taken up by players that aren't of the level. And then we go back to the Maries and the Willians and the Cedrics that have filled spots in this team for too long and haven't had an impact. We can't repeat those processes. But I think there's maybe that grey area in between the player that we absolutely want that maybe we can't get, but recognising that we absolutely still, if you can't get that player, have to get somebody else. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, listen, we've had some stinky players on some massive paychecks, you know, like a lot. And I actually, like, without trying to disrespect him, because I love Zinchenko, he's kind of starting to fit that mold as well, isn't he? Like, where he's like, there's just no place for him really in the team anymore. You know, we've got Calafiori and now Lewis Skelly. What a breakout season he's having. Looks like a phenomenal football player. And even Tierney's like getting minutes ahead of Zinchenko at the moment. And that speaks volumes for me about Zinchenko. And it took us a long time. It took Arteta a long time to get rid of a lot of that dead wood. So we absolutely don't want to just sign players for the sake of signing players right now. But also, like, one of my concerns is we don't sign someone, we end up finishing second or even third this season. Real Madrid come knocking for Saliba. He's off. All of a sudden, it's like, where is this team going now? Like, because you can't just replace someone like Saliba. Like, you know, he's one of those players that I think he's just going to be a world's best defender for the next 10 years of his career. So it's like, if we lose somebody like that, how do you fill that void? And to keep somebody like that, you've got to be winning trophies, like, or be there or thereabouts, which we have been over the last couple of years, which is great. But if we kind of let that slip even a little bit, I can see like some of our higher profile players moving on, and then Arsenal kind of falling back into that realm of like, okay, can we get Champions League this year?
Yeah, I mean, Saliba's always the one, isn't he? He's the one that stands out. You get the sense with Saka, he's an Arsenal man, that he would always want to kind of stand. I know that Saliba as well, to an extent, has been a fan of the club since he was a youngster, from the photos, you know, that we've seen. But it's not in the same way as Saka, you feel. And if a team like Real Madrid was to come in, you know how difficult it was to renew that contract the first time around. And it was only through until we saw 2027, that extension. There wasn't an option. There was nothing further than that. Whereas other players have renewed to, you know, lengths beyond that, that it felt as though that was a contract of, That's great, but it's not the 5 year that we wanted to see. And as a result, that opens the door to clubs like Real Madrid to come in, who have been very good at getting big players for nothing when their contracts run out. And the fear is, with William in a position where at the end of this year, he'll have 1 year remaining. 2 years remaining on that contract, that you'll get into a position where you have to start thinking about decisions. Because if you get to next summer in 2026, after 2025, and you have 1 year left on his deal, you have to have made a decision by that point. And either you sell him for a very good fee, and we should get a very good fee, or you risk losing arguably the world's best, early to mid-20s centre-back for nothing, like we've seen with Rudiger at Chelsea, like we've seen with Mbappe, like we've seen potentially with Trent Alexander-Arnold at Liverpool. Where do you see the balance with that? Or do you look at, say, if Real Madrid come in the summer or in 2026 with a huge bid, how tempted are you therefore to say, maybe we need to think about accepting that because we need to use that money because we cannot risk losing him on a free?
I think in this moment, I think our PSR is like fantastic, isn't it? Like, So I don't.
UEFA restrictions are somewhat tighter on us than PSR.
Okay,
to be fair.
Fair enough. Yeah, but I mean, when you look at who we've got, I think Ben White obviously is a natural centre back, so he could play centre back.
Yes.
Kivior, I wouldn't expect to be at the club for much longer than he is currently at the club now.
Yes.
And then Calafiori can also play centre back. However, he's left-footed with Gabriel. We wouldn't want that either. But so I think we've got quality even in this moment to kind of fill that other centre-back spot if Saliba was to go. But yeah, I think we'd need to put... Look, if Arsenal want to become the team that I think Arsenal want to become, because, like Arteta under Pep has seen a world-class team, like a truly world-class Man City team, destroy everybody and win everything. I think he wants that for Arsenal. And we obviously want that for Arsenal, right? And you can't be letting William Saliba level players disappear because you couldn't find the right profile striker to help you like win a title. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like we would be bringing more stars in before we'd be letting stars go, and it would have to be like a substantial fee for Saliba to go, really. Although my personal opinion, a lot of Arsenal fans don't necessarily agree with me, but I think Gabriel is the best centre back in the world right now. But I know it's not good to compare your own players or contrast them in this manner, but I think Gabriel is the best centre back. Like, I just think he's like,
I think he's been more consistent, far more consistent and impactful. You would argue, as well with his goals that he's added. Whereas Saliba, has got a couple to his name, but I think there's no defender in the world that scored more since he's arrived at Arsenal in terms of centre half. So. I pity the guy that's got to try and argue the opposite point because I think they would struggle. Because I think Gabriel, you're right, he obviously has years on Saliba and he's more experienced, and maybe you would expect that to a degree. But I remember days where Gabriel was almost a scapegoat at Arsenal. He was being like labelled as a guy that's got a mistake in him. That is he really taking us forward? I remember the days where Pablo Mari was being talked about as maybe a better option at centre half than Gabriel. And it shows you that I think, and maybe that goes for players. And I haven't asked you on this, but our summer business of last year has received quite a bit of scrutiny. Calafiori, Mikel Merino, of course, David Raya came in. People don't really talk about David Raya, but he was a signing that was made permanently this summer, and for me has probably been the best goalkeeper in the league. And then you look at those signings of Calafiori and Mikel Merino, 70-odd million quid's gone on both of those with add-ons included, and they've not necessarily had the best impact on a season where we were 2 points off of a title. Moreno in particular has received a lot of scrutiny for his kind of performances, but you look at that Gabriel comparison and think, well, people were very quick to bash him at the start of his career of Arsenal. Do you think that is similar here, or do you maybe think with a player who's of an older age bracket in Moreno that the club have hit a bit of a miss with that one?
Yeah, I think for Calafiori, I think he's brilliant. And he's and that's the issue. Like for him and for Marino, they both come in and been plagued with injuries like the whole time, and that's obviously not something you want. But they're not like recurring knee problems or anything like that, like Jesus has got, where I'm like, he's probably going to struggle with that for the rest of his career. It's like a collarbone break or whatever. It's something that you'd hope that wouldn't repeat itself. I think Marino's got a lot to prove for sure, but I also think he's been like massively unlucky because he's come into this club at a time where our opposition's playing different against us compared to where they were last season and the season before. We've had loads of injuries. Like how much more of a bigger impact could he have made if Saka was fit the whole season, or if if Partey didn't have to keep debutising at right back, like what impact would that have had on Marino? And I also think he's been unlucky with like some missed chances. Like he's missed 4 or 5 absolute sitters so far in his Arsenal career. And if he bags those instead, and we're looking at a guy that's already got like 2 or 3 assists and 5 or 6 goals, maybe you're looking at him in a bit of a different light. So I'd definitely say it's fair to give him some time, but he's not made the impact I thought he would straight away.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think obviously the injury has had a part to play in that. The inconsistencies of our starting 11s this season has been mad. Like,
yeah,
I think if you count them up, you're well into double figures, the amount of different lineups we've had this season. And Marino, of course, came as a starter at Real Sociedad. Ironically, we may end up rebuilding that old Real Sociedad team. Yeah. Martin Zubimendi as a potential replacement for Partey and Jorginho, who we expect to leave in the summer. I think would be a really good side. Quickly, your thoughts on that? I mean, that looks like a great deal.
Yeah, it does look like a great deal. I think we was in for him 2 seasons ago, weren't we? And then he was linked to Liverpool instead. And then I was like, okay, Liverpool are going to get him. We're not in that sort of race. But no, I think if he comes here, like Partey, Jorginho, as you say, they're going to be going. I think Zubimendi, Marino, Rice, Ødegaard, Nwaneri in that centre midfield role, and maybe even Lewis Skelly as well, because I think he's more built for like a kind of like a midfield box to box sort of player rather than a fullback. I like when I look at that midfield, I think if Nwaneri can keep growing and he is looking good, I think he was a bit harshly got pulled off against Wolves at half time, because I thought he was one of our best midfielders. Like his passing and the spaces he finds and the way he like keeps the ball moving rather than slowing it down, I think he's just brilliant as well. So I think Zubimendi would be awesome for us.
Yeah, hopefully. It's all the right noises are coming out at the moment, certainly on that front. And although it's certainly not a done deal, it seems that Arsenal are very much ahead of the queue and will be looking to activate that release clause or pay potentially more than it so they can negotiate a better structured deal for the summer. Nepenthez, thank you so much for your time, mate, this morning. I know it's this evening our time, but when this goes out, it'll be this morning. Tell people they can find you and what you got coming up.
Well, you can find me just Nepenthez everywhere. I haven't really got much coming up. I've waffled on too much today, haven't I? We didn't even get to the Champions League in Girona, so I apologise.
No, that's all right, mate. We got all time tomorrow. But impressive pack up. I mean, I saw you pack the other day. I will be honest with you. I expected a bigger reaction. To be honest.
Well, as
Henry and Ronaldo in the same one was ridiculous.
Yeah, Henry was impressive, but as I mentioned to you just before we started here, like my father's a bit unwell, so my mind's a little bit elsewhere, which is why I was not really celebrating the pack too much. It was a special pack, and I played champs with Henry this weekend and Ronaldo, and that Henry card is absolutely special. And do you know what? It's one of those ones like I don't know exactly how old you are, but I think we're like similar 30. Age. Oh, okay, yeah. So. Yeah, we're not of a similar age. Never mind.
I'm curious now how old you thought I was.
I thought he was like mid-30s.
Okay.
No, apologies.
Obviously, I've got an old face. I'll take it.
Yeah, there you go. But obviously, I'm 40 now, so I grew up watching Henry, and when I started like doing well on FIFA, he never had good cards because he was like New York Red Bulls and things like that, where like his cards weren't great. So it's nice to like get on the field with him and like, it's that little connection that you've got. It's only a video game, mind you, but yeah, it feels good.
Back in the day, and I was at university, and I haven't played FIFA or EAFC in a fair chunk of time. And just the mental toll it takes playing that game is incredible. And I remember when he was at New York Red Bulls, he had an inform card. And I had like a classic Arsenal team of players that used to play for Arsenal. So I think Fabregas was still going by that point. I think he was at Chelsea though. And you just kind of build up a team of players that either still did or used to play for Arsenal with like your icons like Berg. I think it was the first time that icons came out. And I was just determined to like build all the legends. What was it called before? Icons? Legends, just legends, weren't they? Yeah. Just legends. So it's like Bergkamp, and when he only had one card, now he's got 15 in. FC25 or whatever. But yeah, it was nostalgic. Gets people these days, and companies know that, and they really do milk. Arsenal are the same. I can't help but buy all the nostalgic merchandise they come out with. But Nep, it's genuine pleasure. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me.
I and all the listeners will be sending you and your family very well wishes at this time too.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do sincerely hope everything improves for you. But yeah, please make sure, listeners, you check out. If you haven't, I'm sure you do already know plenty about Nepenthez' stuff. But he's been fantastic for us to entering a very different space, perhaps, to what he's usually used to. So we're very humbly appreciative of that. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning on Wednesday for a little preview ahead of the game against Girona from Girona, where I'll be currently at as you're watching this. So see you soon. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.